Hello everyone and welcome to another Scots Whay podcast, and today I'm joined by Keira Brown. Hello Keira.
Hi Alistair.
And we're going to talk mainly about the Paisley Book Festival, which is subtitled Radical Voices and Rebel Stories, in which you are involved in. So can you give us an overview about the festival coming up?
Okay, so it sort of came about through the City of Culture 2021 bid.
Mm-hmm.
There was a clear galvanised momentum from that there was a regeneration requirement or need within Paisley. So Remshire Leisure have been very much committed to focusing on that, and they've decided that they're going to do a book festival. So Jess and I have come in and got involved as independent producers and have come up with a theme: Radical Voices and Rebel Stories, off the back of the 1820 Radical Uprising. So
Yes.
There's a commemorative, and there'll be lots of activity going on this year commemorating 200 years of that. But we are very much focusing on the radical in a more modern context. Mm-hmm. So we're looking back to those historical figures and very much taking inspiration from those. They were thinkers, they were readers, and we're opening up that space for more of that to happen. But even if you look through the programme, you can see that we're very much contextualising the word radical and how it fits in today's society.
Yeah, absolutely. When I first heard of the idea of a kind of radical Paisley or radical Renfrew through, I think it was Tom Leonard's book, which I picked up in my shop, and he collected a lot of the poetry, and I think it's a tradition that not many people know about, so it's great that this is happening and celebrating that movement. So there's lots going on. I should say it's running from the 20th to the 29th of February. And whereabouts is it going to be based? There's quite a few different places and spaces, isn't there?
So it's a multi-venue festival, but the festival hub will be the Paisley Art Centre. That's where you can go to book tickets, or you can give them a call, and certainly that's our box office space. A lot of the big events will be happening in there, including John Byrne's birthday bash and the various events with Nikesh Shukla and Jenny Lindsay. We've also got Janice Galloway and a lot of Kirsten Innes's curated strand within that venue, but we do have lots going on within other venues in Paisley, mostly within the centre. So you have got the UWS, which are working with us in conjunction to put on this event that will be amazing, with Ruth Wishart interviewing Kirsty Wark. So to have those two women in a room together will be amazing in itself. And then we've got pop-up poetry sessions throughout the 10 days that are going to be in Bianco Nero and also the Fairfield Cafe. Mary Collins is going to be doing a Create Cafe and Blend. Alan Bissett has gone and curated a really interesting strand called Writers in the Pubs, and he's basically taken various different pubs in Paisley and got interesting characters in there, like the supernova that is Chris McQueer. He's going to be doing an event in Callum's Cavern, which is quite an unusual venue in itself. So it's right underneath the railway station in Paisley.
Right.
And it's got one of those sort of corrugated iron archways, and you can hear the trains passing whilst events are going on. So there will be this interesting atmos whilst Chris is performing. And then another one will be in the Bull Inn, which will be quite unique. So Maggie Gibson, Kevin P. Gilday from Sonnet Youth, and Imogen Sterling are all going to be performing poetry in the Bull. Now, I don't know if you're aware of the Bull, but it's an old heritage pub in Paisley, and it's one of those that's got those wee snug booths in the back, where you could imagine, people of 1820 perhaps coming up with ideas and discussing their skullduggery, and we're going to have an intimate, unusual event within those snugs that will involve those three poets. So there's something quite different throughout the festival for everyone in various venues in Paisley.
It sounds like really using the different spaces so well. The one with Chris McQueen sounds fascinating.
And also Book Bug in the Bath. This one probably has to be one of the most radical events that we've got.
Explain this.
Book Bug in the Bath is basically book bug in the local leisure centre swimming pool. So just think bunch of toddlers and lots of bath books. It's going to be quite amazing, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be quite wild. Because you have this really nice mix of, as you say, the things, different events, but there's also kind of lectures, there's writing classes. I think there's an open mic as well. So you really tried, is this what you tried to do instead of just the kind of standard festival, book festival often is, you know, someone has a book out, they talk to the audience or they get interviewed and then there's audience questions and that kind of bit, and that works fine as well, but it just feels like you've tried to do something really different here.
Well, we very much tried to curate it to the theme, and I think you know, looking at Paisley as being somewhat of a radical town where anything can happen, we wanted to create a festival and curate a programme that actually spoke that in terms of its dynamism and maybe a little bit of edginess. So even having an event that's focusing on like low income access to publishing, or the BAME writing masterclass that we've got with Nikesh Shukla, is just opening the doors for new and exciting things to happen. So yeah, I think it's an unusual festival from that perspective.
And some of the events, you've got the Paisley Radicals. Now, is that the one that Jerry Carruthers was involved in, or is that one of Alan's events? Remind me, I was looking at the programme this afternoon.
So the We Are Paisley Radicals
Yes.
is Gwen McCarroll.
Right.
So that's Fundamental Conduit. They combine spoken word and music, and they're going to be going through history with that approach, looking at various characters and situations in rebellious history. The one that I think you might be referring to is actually the one with Jerry Carruthers about Tom Leonard. So
that's it. That's what
he's going to be reflecting on that book that you mentioned before, Radical Renfrew, and he's going to be doing some readings from it. And that's part of Alan's strand, and that's going to be in quite an intimate venue called The Lane in Paisley. So that's another one in the pubs. There is also focusing on the radicals. Our opening night should be quite interesting. So Maggie Craig, I think she's up in Huntly, she's going to be very much reading from her books that are on Scottish radicalism and the Red Clyde side. So she will be in attendance on Thursday the 20th. So we are reflecting on the old radicals as well as focusing on the new.
And another event I noticed was in conjunction with Glasgow Women's Library, Radical Women as well. So what is it? Can you say who they're going to be looking at, or is it just too big a subject to say?
So the one with the Glasgow Women's Library, that's one of their story cafes.
Right.
So they do those regularly in the Glasgow Women's Library, but they're going to be taking that to Paisley, so opening up that space for people to come along and discuss their the books that will be under that radical umbrella. And yeah, the story cafe, they always bring along their lunch, which is quite nice. But yeah, no, that should be an interesting one as well. I mean, we wanted to partner up with quite a few organisations.
Yeah.
Open Book are the ones that are doing the open mic night, and the UWS obviously with the Kirsty Work event.
So I'm interested in how someone says, well, we're going to do a book festival. What's your approach to it? Is it, did you find a theme with this one, or did you think who's available, or I mean, what was the approach?
There was a bit of all of that. So we had been given the premise that Renfrewshire Leisure wanted to reflect upon the 1820 radical uprisings, and using that as inspiration, we had to come up with the theme, and radical voices and rebel stories. It felt like a positive tagline. We don't want to dwell too much on what's going on right now. We want to have that optimism. So yes, we took it to that point, and then thought, who's coming out with new books? Had a look at who potentially fits the theme and whether their books actually fit the theme. One of the most radical and theme-fitting books that we have is actually by the children's writer Larry Dawn.
Right.
Fierce, Fearless and Free
is
the title of her book, which is coming out with Bloomsbury this year. So that's an event that's more for the sort of 8 and up year olds, but very much about female protagonists in fictional settings that will not allow themselves to get eaten by a dragon or rescued by a prince. So that, will be interesting, I reckon.
And did you feel that there were certain things that you had to try and get in? I mean, there's a broad selection of kind of styles. You've got poetry, as we'll come on to talk about a bit more. I think there's a comic book event, and there's also, I think, a crime event. Was it quite important to have something that appeals to everyone across the board?
Well, yeah, very much. There's very much a spoken word scene in Paisley, and we wanted to appeal to that because recognising what's there and what's working and what local talent already exists within Paisley is just as much a part of it as bringing in wider talent from down south and across Edinburgh, etc. So there was a bit of that. They also have a very successful Comic-Con.
Yes.
So there's obviously a clear demand within the book world for more of that sort of thing. So having Maria Stoyan do a Making Your Own Zine workshop and having Paul Bristow come along to talk about like 1820 and this comic book Whay, it seemed ideal to have those included in the programme.
And the first thing I got a ticket for was John Byrne's birthday bash. Had to be done. Was it important? I mean, he is perhaps the greatest living Paisley man, maybe, I don't know, but it certainly is for me. Was that easy to get him on board, or was that something that you're just delighted to get him on board, I suppose?
Through years of working in various bookshops and whatnot, you sort of acquire a list of contacts, and perhaps through that it wasn't too difficult. I don't really want to divulge too much.
No, fair enough. Can you? I think you don't want to divulge too much about what his birthday bash will entail. Is that going to be a surprise?
I can say that Lauren MacDonald will be interviewing him. I don't know if you're aware of him, but he was in Mouthpiece and he has done stuff with David Tennant. But they'll be very much in conversation with John. There might also be some performances or readings. I'm not going to go too much into that.
Fair enough. I'm just so excited about it. I talk to you about that. Is that one of the exciting things when you get someone that you think, or you put together a panel, you go, yeah, this is exactly what we were looking for? Because there's some fantastic events in terms of, you've got one with Jenny Fagan, Kirsten Innes and Emma Jean Unsworth. What a fantastic, dinner party that would be, never mind anything else. Is that part of the joy?
It is part of the joy. Sadly, Kirsten curated that one herself, so we can't actually take... well, yes, we can't take the compliment for that one, but some of them, like having John Byrne involved is a real coup for the festival. As I mentioned before, the Breaking the Mould panel event, having Brianna from Creative Edinburgh and also Lindsay as well as Ever Dundas talking about, is going to be a really interesting event. And also, like, the opening night was probably one of the most difficult events to actually curate because you're setting the scene with that evening. So it took a few toing and froing between Jess and myself as to what we were going to put on that opening evening, because we wanted to highlight what would be happening for the next 10 days. So having Maggie, who's a historian, and then Jim Carruth do a bit of poetry, as well as also Beldina, or Heir of the Cursed as she's known, perform a bit of music which really sort of sits quite hauntingly with you, moves us in a historical way from the 1820 times to a more modern day, getting us to where we're at with the book festival. So that was a real achievement, we felt, in terms of our...
It's a brilliant lineup, and it's one I think most people would never think of putting together, but for exactly the reasons that you say. You know, it's almost telling a story of three very different writers, or the ones I know anyway. But yeah, you can see how that would work together. And it closes with fun-loving
crime writers. Yes.
Which is a great night to end on.
Well, yes, because, having come from Glastonbury and various other... I think they do Cheltenham last year?
I have a feeling they did, yeah.
They haven't performed with Val for a wee while, because she's been out in Auckland, I believe. So right. It should be a fantastic event. In fact, it's, I think, pretty much sold out, both events, then with them talking about their books, as all 6 of them will, earlier in the day, and then they will be performing tracks in the evening. So that'll be a fun way to conclude the festival.
Absolutely. I'm just going to say, for those who don't know, but the fun-loving crime writers are Val McDermid, Chris Brookmeyer, Mark Billingham, Doug Johnson, Stuart Neville, and Luca Vesti. And so 6 of our finest crime writers who just get up there and play their music. And part of me thinks they're maybe getting better known now for doing that than they are for writing their novels.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Is there anyone, because we can't go through the whole programme clearly, if you want to know what the programme is, go check it on the website. The programme is out, check all about it. But is there anything that jumps out that you want to discuss?
So Nikesh Shukla's event, not the writing masterclass, but he is very much the person behind editing The Good Immigrant, which is the book that was 21 essays about being in the UK and not being white.
Right.
Readers, I think, Books in My Bag, Reader's Choice a few years ago. He also is the writer of Meat Space, Run Riot and The Boxer, and his first book, Coconuts Unlimited. He will be coming along to talk, and from previous talks of his, he will be absolutely great. And you may not have heard of him, but he's very much one to discover. Personally, I'm quite excited about Chitra Ramaswamy and also Emily Morris's event that's Othering Motherhood. And they're going to be talking about new ways perhaps, more modern ways of mothering, and, incorporating that into their writing, as they have with books like such as Expecting and Can I Swear?
Yes.
In My Shitty 20s. So yeah, that should be a really interesting one, and it's a baby friendly one as well. Janice Galloway.
Yes, Janice Galloway, absolutely.
I mean, it's going to be 30 years of The Trick Is to Keep Breathing, so we're going to be commemorating that. She's going to be talking about, having written that book, and also working as a writer for the last 30 years. She'll be astounding to go see. There's too much to...
There is too much. A couple of things that jumped out for me were, I think you mentioned Jenny Lindsay, who's always fantastic.
Yes.
And 365 Stories, which is James Robertson and Aidan O'Rourke as a musician. And they've done that. That's something I heard about previously, but it's, I think, putting the stories to music, isn't it? A story for every...
Yes, so that's a really unusual installation that will be sitting in the old post office space in Paisley.
Right.
And that will be there for the course of the 10 days, and you can go in and listen to some stories. I think some of them are by James, some of them are read by other writers, and then there's music there by Lau's Aidan O'Rourke that you can listen to as well. But it will be quite an unusual installation. There's some other things going on in that venue that are worth mentioning as well. Remode, that are an organisation that focus on upcycling and very much in an eco-friendly way. They are doing a slogan screen printing workshop that's going to be happening in the pop space, and that's going to be on the 29th. So they'll take you through from the slogan that you want on your tote bag to screen printing it to sewing it together. So that'll be more of an unusual workshop, as well as, you know, the more expected book events that you can expect over the course of a book festival.
And now that it's coming to, well, fruition, as I take it, it's nearly all signed off and ready to go. Is that a relief, or is it just excitement, or how does it feel for something as big as this?
Until it's the 29th of February.
Yeah, I thought you might say that.
And we have a glass of wine in our hand. Then, relief will happen then. I think I mean, it is exciting. It's absolutely, like, just the response that we've had from Paisley and the local residents as well as out with. I think it's great, and I think the programme that we've curated this year will hopefully instill it as an annual festival in the town. I think it's captured some recognition, and it will mean that we're working from something that's quite strong, and people will expect year after year the Paisley Book Festival, and you know that in itself is very exciting.
It's incredible. It's brilliant.
But yeah, I am looking forward to that glass of wine on the 29th.
I think it shows you, you mentioned at the start how a lot of this was off the back of the bid for a City of Culture, and how that has really energised what's happening in Paisley. And I think it says, I think a similar thing happened in Glasgow years ago, similar thing happened in Dundee, where even if these bids aren't successful, then there's a real a move forward to kind of do things like this. And I've been to Paisley more in the last 3 years for events than I've probably been in 40 before that, because of that very reason. We can talk a little bit about the Fountain then.
Sure.
Yeah, so I know you best, I think, from running the Fountain website, which I think is one of the best cultural websites around. Say that to you now.
Thank you.
And so explain a little bit to people who don't know about the Fountain, as if.
Okay, so the Fountain is, we're only maybe 3 years old, I think, so we're quite young.
But you've come far in that time.
Thank you. So we are a review site that focuses on Scottish culture. We cover what's going on around Scotland as far as we can. We've got writers as far up north as Aberdeen, and then obviously we focus very much a lot on the Central Belt. We do also expose and feature artists as well, so looking at, spanning from theatre all the way to food, music, film. We cover a vast array of Scottish culture.
You really do. So when you started the Fountain, was this exactly what you wanted it to be, or has there been detours along the way? When I first started Scots Whay, I kind of didn't really have a clear. I know that's just basically me rather than a team of people, but I wasn't entirely sure how it was going to go, and it took a few years to kind of say, right, this is the format of it. But did you have a clear idea in your head kind of from the beginning what it was going to be like?
I knew that it was going to be an open platform for a lot of writers that don't necessarily get their foot in to more sort of well-known publications, to give them the opportunity to get work published. I knew that was going to be the case. I didn't know that we'd actually start curating events ourselves. I didn't see that one happening, but yes, in terms of like our online output, we were clear that that's what we were going to do.
And in terms of events, is that something that you think you'll do more of, or no, or who knows?
I think yes, to be honest. I mean, there is a buzz and excitement from putting on a great event, and from getting that like wonderful lineup of people together, like we have with the Fountains Evening of Rebel Poetry. You know, when you get a lineup like that, then there's just such a excitement around having these people in one place, and yeah, I don't think I'll give that up.
Yeah. And do you think that, you know, we know that the things like the written word seem to be, you know, newspapers are finding it difficult and magazines are finding it difficult, and do you think hopefully increasingly there is still a place for the sort of well written articles that you guys do or online, you know, reviews and things like that?
I hope so. I actually interestingly had a conversation with Dave Hook about this today, about the fact that there seems to be a devaluation in content. And I don't know if that's because of our now dependency on mobile phone apps or something else. Like I remember when you used to pick up like a list or a skinny or something, a publication that spoke to you about music, and that would be your source of where do I go next.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now we're fed like Spotify suggestions or Amazon suggestions, and I hope that we don't become dependent on these. I hope
which just look at the stars, or they look at the amount of followers or the amount of hits rather than any actual critical content of it.
And I think that there should be a space cultivated still within the critiquing sphere, was what we were discussing.
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope so. Well, Keira, thanks very much for talking to us today.
Thank you.
All the very best with the book festival.
Thank you.
Fountain, looking forward to it. And we'll be back soon with someone completely different. Cheers.